Hi everybody, welcome to the latest in our Knowledge Bite series of free webinars. These webinars are only 30 minutes long and they are designed just to give you a little bit of a taste of some of the things that you can do. Today's topic is Excel, and what I'm hoping that you'll get out of this session is that you'll see that certain things like pivot tables are not so scary and be able to start giving them a try for yourselves. If you're already creating your charts and your pivot tables, you may just find that you're working harder than you need to be. So I hope to give you a few pointers in that direction. So I've set up a file for you, which is a practice file that I hope you'll go and download, and that way you can follow along with me. Or you might prefer just to watch and then practice with that file whilst you watch the replay. So this session is being recorded and you'll be sent a link out afterwards. So we have our practice file set up. There's also some keyboard shortcuts there for you. So I'm a bit of a fan of keyboard shortcuts, and what you'll see on that sheet when you have a look at it is there's an asterisk next to some of the shortcuts because they work in multiple programs, and I like to get as much productivity and efficiency as I can. So we've got a few people I can see have arrived, and I know we've got a few more who are going to watch the replay. So without anything else, we're going to get started. I do have a moderator on board, so if you do have any technical problems, just let us know in the chat line and Wenz is going to take care of that. Just check first of all that everybody can hear okay. Can I get a quick response? Can everybody hear okay? Just give everyone a chance. Whilst we're checking on that, I'm also going to start with a poll. So one of the things that I'd like to know, which is going to help me to just make sure I get the right pace and the right content, is I want to know where you've got your current Excel skills from. So I'm going to open us up with a poll. So it should be on your screen now. And if you could just take a moment to pick which one of those answers best describes how you got your knowledge of Excel. And that's going to really help me to get a feel for the right pace to go at and which topics to touch on. I do find that a lot of people are self-taught, and I'm already seeing the responses coming through. So far we've got 100% self-taught, so give it another moment, but that really doesn't surprise me at all. I find many people are in fact self-taught. Getting a few more responses come in. I'll just give that another moment. And just checking in on our chat, and we have got sound. That's fantastic. So in a moment when we get started, I'm actually going to turn my camera off so that no one's distracted, and we're just going to focus on Excel because that's what we're here to do. So I'll turn it on again at the end just to sign off, but in a moment now, let's check on that poll, and I'll be turning the camera off soon. Okay, so I'm going to finish that poll. And what doesn't surprise me at all is that we've got 80% of people are self-taught and only 20% of people have attended training, and it wasn't recently. So pretty common, unfortunately. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen now and get Excel up on the screen for you. And if anybody is not seeing Excel on screen, just let us know in the chat window so that we can take care of that. And I'm going to be turning off my camera now so that we can all focus on getting our Excel skills sharp. Here we go. So, all right, so if you've had the chance to download the file, you'll be seeing this file called Webinar, and it's an Excel file with multiple tabs in it. So I'm going to dive straight into doing data tables. So what you can see here is I've got some data on the screen. It's absolutely plain and boring at the moment, and I meet a lot of people who spend way too much time formatting, more time than they need to. So we've got some data here. We've got a few classic problems that come with this type of data. One thing is that if we were needing to add more data to the end, you can see that as soon as I start scrolling down, I lose the headings. Now, of course, you probably know how to freeze your headings, but I'm going to show you you don't need to be able to freeze your headings anymore because I can do it even easier. So we can't see our headings if we scroll down, and if we're adding more data, it's plain and dull, doesn't present very well. And we're probably going to want to be doing things to analyze this data, such as sorting and filtering. Easiest way to do that is I'm actually going to format this data as a table. So the first thing I do is I'm going to click any one cell anywhere in amongst the data. And it's really important that you don't have any blank rows or blank columns in your data. Otherwise, Excel will consider that a separate set of data. So I have my data, I've clicked any one cell anywhere in the middle. I'm on my Home ribbon tab, going a little over halfway along, and you'll find a great option here called Format as Table. Now I could also go to the Insert ribbon tab, and I have the table option there as well. But that's extra clicks, so I'm going to stay on the Home ribbon tab, a little over halfway along, coming to Format as Table. When I click on the drop down arrow there, you'll see it drops down a gallery for me, and you'll see I get different pretty effects there. I typically find I just pick one color and stick with it and use it most of the time, but that's up to you. I'm going to choose the blue medium option. Now you can see this was why I only bothered to select one cell before starting this process. I don't have to select the range myself. Excel can pick that up for me perfectly well. And it's also picking up the fact that I have headings. Now that's because they have simply been bolded. It's all you need to do just to make sure that Excel can tell it's the heading. Usually gets it right, but it does make it easier. So you can see my table has headers. I check it, I click OK, and hey presto, isn't that pretty? So you can see now our data is now looking good. We have our headings up across the top, and conveniently we now have our filters automatically turned on because it knows this is the kind of data we are likely to want to use those. If I begin to scroll down, making sure I'm clicked anywhere in amongst my data, you'll see that my headings freeze automatically. They stay put up the top. If I scroll back again, you'll see, isn't that great? Just makes life so much easier. Now what I'm going to demonstrate really quickly is I'm going down to the bottom of the data, and I'm going to show you what happens if I need to add on an extra row of information. So I'll just type in an extra record, and of course the autocomplete kicks in as soon as I start typing December, and I can press tab and I'll start typing a name. Let's give this one to Jeff again. He sold some thingamajigs. 12. I'll just do one more just to prove the point. See, that formatting is automatically kicking in there, and you can see that saves me a lot of extra work. Coming back up the top of my file now, I'm going to use keyboard shortcut here, Control Home. Just gets me up the very top of any file, Word, Excel and PowerPoint, super quick. And I'm back at the top now. Now, what you can see we've achieved so far is we've got lovely formatting. We've got frozen headings, and we have our filter arrows. So if I wanted to say select only the data for, let's say, December, February, January for the summer period in Australia, click on OK, and you can see it's filtered that information for me. I'm going to filter that a little bit further, just to make it accessible and see it just all on the one screen. I'll also filter by our salespeople. Let's have a look at Jeff's sales in December. Now, I wanted you to see just the amount of data on the one screen. So you can see this next feature that's one of my favorites about tables. What I'm going to do now is, again, making sure I'm clicked in any one cell anywhere in amongst the table. Once you've formatted your data as table, you're going to see that you get an extra ribbon tab up across the top called Table Design. Now, if you're not seeing it, you've probably clicked outside your data area. So really important, just check where you've clicked. So we click inside our data area. I'm going to the Table Design ribbon tab, and I love this feature. You come across to around about the middle again. You'll see some little tick boxes, and I'm going to tick Total Row. Now look at that, it's automatically added an extra row at the bottom. It's added the word total and formatted it, and it's automatically over here put in a sum. But it's not just any sum, it's the subtotal function. And the subtotal function is adding just the visible data. So you can see I'm looking at the sales for Jeff Wilson in December. Now, let's say I filtered that down just a little bit more, and let's focus on just a couple of those items. We'll remove the Watsons, and you can see that information updates. Even better, let's say I now go, well, what was the average unit price for those items? I can click into that cell, and even if you don't normally do formulas and functions and it's not your strong point, you'll be able to do this. You can see we get a little drop down arrow there. I can click on that and I can choose from a few of the more common functions. So I'm going to say, okay, what was the average? Maybe now I want to know what was the total quantity. And you can see I can easily add that information quickly and easily. Now I might change to a different salesperson. Let's have a look at the same information, but this time for Chris Dyer. And again, you can see that updates. Now I want to bring all of my data back. To do that, I'm going to clear the filter. Now there's a couple of ways you can do that. I could go to each one of these columns that I have filtered, click on the drop down arrow there, and I could choose to clear the filter. But given that I've filtered at least 2 columns here, that's going to take longer. So what I'm going to do instead is go to my data ribbon, and we've got the clear filter button here. One click on that, it clears all the filters and brings back all the information straight away. Can I get one word to describe what we're thinking about the data tables so far? Just pop it into the chat for me. One word. Is this interesting? Is it boring? Are you going, wow? Give me a little bit of feedback here. I'll keep going in the meantime. I'm going to show you the next feature that I really like. I'm currently doing an accounting subject for my MBA, and it was really interesting to see different approaches to setting up spreadsheets. And what I noticed is that a lot of people will leave a gap before then doing their calculations in a spreadsheet like this. What I'm going to do is because I've formatted it as a table, I'm going to make life even easier. And I'm going to create a calculation in this next column here. Now, our salespeople, they earn commission. So I'm going to set up a column for that. So I'm going to just simply type into cell G1 the word commission. Once again, look at that lovely formatting kicking in there for us. And now I'm going to create my calculation. So I'm just going to do a very, very basic formula, and clicking into cell G2. Of course, I need to start my formula by clicking on the cell where the answer needs to go. People often think equals is the first step. We always start by clicking on the cell where we want the answer to go. Now I'm going to type equals, which tells Excel I'm doing maths, and I'm going to come over and click on the cell in question, which in this case is F2. Now, if you haven't done formulas in a data table before, you might be finding this a bit strange, because you would expect it to be saying cell F2, but it doesn't. It says sales. Now, this is because when you're in a data table, it has an awareness of the bigger picture. So I'm just going to continue on here, and I'm going to say, let's give them 10% of the sales as their commission. And I'm going to finish that off with enter. And once again, you can see it fills all the way down there, saving me quite a bit of work. Now, if you're not familiar with seeing these hash symbols, all that's saying to me is that the column is not wide enough to display the number. So I'm going to take my mouse up to the border between columns G and H and do a double left click, and it now will automatically adjust that. And you can see there is my commission calculated. And coming down to the bottom, just using Control End, END on the keyboard there to come all the way to the bottom. And you can see once again, I could total that up really easily and see just how much commission we have to pay out. So that's a quick look at data tables. I hope you found that helpful and get some use out of it. It can be a great way to really also tidy up your data. So I was working on some data extracted from a database just the other day, and one of the things that I needed to do was to tidy up the data and remove any data that wasn't required for my analysis. So for example, there were replicate, there were some rows of information that didn't have any values in them. So before doing the analysis, we needed to remove those. Now, rather than scrolling through looking for those, because I've applied the table here and I have my filters available, I can easily select to find the values of interest, in this case our ones where we don't have a value. And now that I can see those, I can highlight those, right click and delete the rows. Right, go back, clear my filter, there's the rest of my data back. So it saves quite a bit of time when you're setting up things like that. One final thing before we leave our data tables is that I want to show you how to convert your data back to a normal set of data, so back from being a data table. The reason why you may want to do this is if you're doing a more complex calculation, you may find that what we call structured referencing, which is what happens up here, you may find that too complicated. So if that's an issue for you, you could turn that off. And the only thing I recommend is we go to table design, clear the tick from total row, and then we select convert to arrange. And say yes to that. Now what you can see is I still have the pretty formatting, but I do lose the frozen headings and I do lose my filter arrows. So sometimes I'll turn that off just for a little while, and then when I'm ready, I'll just pop it back on again to get all of those lovely benefits. So I hope you found that one helpful. Going to move on now to a quick little bit on some, let's go for some charts. So I'm coming across down the bottom to the quick analysis tab, and I want to show you just really quickly how to do a couple of charts. First thing we do is we need to select our data. Now in this case, I'm going to select my data of Q1 and Q2 sales. Right, it's always our first step is we select our data. At this point, what a lot of people would do is they might go to the insert ribbon and start looking at which chart they might use. And that can be a great way to go. I would like to point out there is also recommended charts. And this takes the data that you've selected and it suggests some different types of charts for you. So that can be a really quick way to go and start your chart off. What I want to show you that's, I think, even better though, is I love a keyboard shortcut. So having selected my data, I'm going to press the F11 key on my keyboard. And look what I get. So straight away, it has created a brand new chart on a separate tab, and it's inserted that to the left-hand side. Now that gives me a lovely chart, nice and big, easy on the eyes, and now I can do my formatting. Can I get a wow from anybody who found that helpful? Who didn't know about F11? Who's thinking, yeah, I have been working too hard? All right, I'm going to do one more quick chart, again, just to show you how quick and easy charts are, just to get you started. This time I'm going to do a pie chart. Now, when we do a pie chart, out of the data I've got, I want to take the first column and I want to take the last column. I don't want to put the Q1 and Q2 sales in there. So typically when we do a pie chart, we're tracking what percentage out of the overall something takes up. So I'm going to select cells B2 down to B17, and then holding down the control key on the keyboard, I'm going to go over and select F2 to F17. So I'm leaving out the data in the middle. And this time I will go via the insert ribbon just to show you how easy it is to go that way as well. And I'm going to insert. I could go to recommended charts. It's giving me a few suggestions there, but I'm going to cancel that. I want a pie chart, so I'm just going to go straight away to a nice, quick and easy pie chart. Grab that and move it over. Now, of course, once you've created your chart, whether you insert it or use the keyboard shortcut F11, it doesn't matter either way. As long as you are on your chart, you will have these extra contextual ribbons to help you format it. Now, one of the things that can make it really quick and easy to format is to use a combination of the gallery and the quick layout. For a pie chart, my favorite option to use is typically that very first one there. And what you can see is that gives me leader lines and data labels. It converts the values into percentages and it turns the legend off. Now, that's quite a busy chart, but you get the idea. Nice, quick, easy way to create your charts. Once you've got your chart created, use these ribbons to format it, finesse it, and get things just right. Okay, very conscious of time, so I'm going to keep moving on and show you a few more things. I'm going to actually move that chart just over a touch. I wanted to show you the quick analysis tool. So I've got this data sitting here, and a really common thing is that we need to do something with our data to make it actually have meaning. We need to present that information, and we're not always sure how to get started. So a great tool that's now available is the quick analysis tool. Soon as I select my data, down the bottom right hand corner you usually find it is this little guy. Right? This is known as a smart tag, and in this case it's the quick analysis smart tag. When I click on that, you can see I get a whole range of options that are going to help me do my formatting. So under the formatting ribbon tab there, you can see I could do data bars. These are part of the conditional formatting. I love this one. It's a really great way to show which values are high and which values are low. And it could draw your attention to outliers when you're analysing your data and looking for those values that are particularly high or particularly low. Another one you could use is the colour code. This is like a traffic light version, red for low figures, green for high figures, and you can check that one out. I'm going to come across the top though now just to show you. Here is also another quick and easy way to create your charts. And once again, with the data you've highlighted, it shows you examples of that data in different types of charts. Coming across to the totals here, again, if formulas are not your thing just yet, this is a great way to get yourself started. And our data tables. So here's our data tables that I was showing you before. It's another quick and easy way that you can create them. And the other thing I wanted to show you is the pivot tables. So we'll get to those in just a moment. So in order to do our pivot tables, I'm actually going to go across to the next sheet tab down the bottom, just to use a little bit more realistic data. So if you haven't done a pivot table before, the whole idea of a pivot table is that it's when you have a large amount of data. You usually use a pivot table, and you'll find that sorting and filtering are just not sufficient anymore. A pivot table will allow you to sort, filter, subtotal, total. It's a fantastic tool to analyze your data. You can group it, you can extract it. It's a very powerful tool, and a lot of people think that it's a sign of having great skill in Excel to be able to do a pivot table. Well, it is and it isn't. It is in that pivot tables are very valuable, but they're actually not that hard. So what I want to show you is just how easy pivot tables are to get started. Once again, I'm in the middle of my data. I've clicked any one cell. I make sure I have no blank rows, no blank columns. I'm going to show you this way first. Going to the Insert ribbon tab. Here's the quickest and easiest way you can go. If you're in the latest version, second option along, you'll get recommended pivot tables. Now, this actually creates the pivot table for you, giving you a whole range of different examples using that particular data. And you can select one of those and then click on OK, and there's your pivot table. That's super easy. For me, it's a little bit too easy. I'm a little bit old school, so I'm going to cancel out of there. I'm going to show you a little bit more detail how to go. So I'm still in my data, still on the Insert ribbon tab, selecting Pivot Table. This gives you the old school wizard dialog box, and the first thing it's doing is checking, has it found the correct data for me? Which it has. It generally will if you've clicked in amongst your data. Where do I want to put it? Most of the time you want to put it on a brand new worksheet, unless you are creating multiple pivot tables, and that sometimes you'll put them on the same sheet, and that would allow you to choose that sheet particularly. I'm going to keep it on a new worksheet and click on OK. Now what you can see here is it's created a brand new sheet tab. It's given me a placeholder in the main area, and over on the right hand side it's created this pane that allows us to now manipulate our pivot table and build it. The first thing we get is every one of our column headings are now available as fields. We have 4 possible locations that we can place this information to build our pivot table, and that's what we're going to start doing right now. the first thing you need to decide when you're creating a pivot table is what is the story that you're wanting to tell? What is it that you're analysing? And part of that is going to come from what fields of information do you have? In other words, what are your column headings? Typical would be that I might want to analyse which of my sales reps are best at selling. So that allows me to identify, well, I'm going to click sales rep as my very first field. Sales rep contains their names. It's a text field, or what we would call a qualitative label, and therefore it's going to automatically put it in the rows area. Next, I'm going to say, let's identify what sales that they've been making. That's going to give us the value. Now, that is a column of information containing numbers or values, and therefore it's automatically going to put that into the values area. Now, this is a very, very basic pivot table, but it's still a pivot table. And what you can see is it's starting to analyze that information for us. I can add in a little bit more there. So maybe I want to be able to analyze what months they're good at selling in. Now, here's where you can see it starts to get a bit tricky because it's automatically, again, put it into the rows area. Once you start identifying the information you want in your pivot table, the next thing you need to do is just tweak things a little bit until you get a pivot table presenting the story that you want it to. To do that, one of the classic things you might do is rearrange your fields from the row area to the columns area. There's a few ways that you can do that. I'm going to take the month field. Now I could click on the drop down arrow, and you can see I could choose from here to move it to column labels. That's one way we can go. The other way I want to show you is that I'm going to simply left click and drag. You can see there is my pivot table. Now this is just a taster. I can do a full 3 hours on pivot tables alone, and probably still have a little bit more to tell you about. So pivot tables are a lot of fun, but this is just to get you started so you can start playing with them. Now, we are just about out of time. I'm going to show you one last quick little thing before we finish up, and that is I did want to show you about flash fill. And this is on the last sheet tab of the file there. We've got flash fill, and this is a really great tool that's now available. You can see I've set up a spreadsheet with some email addresses, and a really classic thing we might want to do with data is need to separate it out. In this case, I want to separate my data out into people's first names and last names. So what I can do is I'm going to click into the first cell I've got there, cell C3, and I'm going to type a little bit of typing here. I'm going to type their first name, Nancy, and then I'm going to press enter. Now you might think, oh, this doesn't look exciting, but wait till you see what happens next. I'm in the second cell down. I'm going to start typing Andrew. I've only gone as far as typing the A, and the autocomplete has kicked in, and it's saying, oh, is this what you're trying to do? And I'm just going to press enter, and that is now done. I'm going to do the same thing with their last name. So there's my first one. Nothing further happens. When I get to the second record, as soon as I start typing the first letter of the second record, done, and everybody's in. Now let's say these are my new employees, and the reason why I'm getting their names separated out is I now need to build a new email address for them. So I'm going to come across to the next cell over, and I'm going to now create their new email address. They've just joined my company, and you can see there's the first one, and there we go. There's everybody's new email addresses ready to go. So this is a fantastic recent feature. It's called Flash Fill. It will allow you to separate data. It will allow you to bring data together in a whole range of different ways. It's fairly new. It's not perfect. I did deliberately set up this record to show you some of its limitations. So if our data isn't consistent, then obviously you will have problems. But otherwise, I think you'll agree it works pretty well. I'm going to come back on air now. So we are just about out of time. So I hope you found this helpful. So this was one of our free webinars, part of our Knowledge Bite series. I do plan on doing more free webinars. There will also be some longer paid webinars coming up in the future. I hope you'll visit my webpage, www.ffk.com.au, and register if you would like to be kept in the loop. Keep an eye out, and if you could please spread the word. If you need any training or you know somebody interested, I'd be very grateful. But I hope you found this helpful and get some extra skills out of Excel for it. Thanks for your time today. Hope you're doing well in isolation and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye, everybody.